Chuck in Battle Creek, Michigan on 89.7 FM, Holy Family Radio. You're up next. Hey, Chuck.
Hello. Thank
Hello.
you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Hey, Chuck.
So a friend of mine got the book by Richard Carrier that gives supposedly 4 pieces of evidence. I don't know if you heard of that.
We're familiar with Richard Carrier.
Right.
He's debated our own Trent Horn. He's the doyen of the Jesus Didn't Exist set.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the one I'm interested in is the idea of God is silent.
Right.
That, if God were real, then he could talk to us today for everyone directly, right?
Yes.
And not violate our free will.
Right. He could show up like the Jolly Green Giant on the fields of Stonehenge
Right.
and utter pronouncements.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want me to address this issue, Chuck?
Yeah, I'd be interested in your response to it.
Okay. All right. It's a great question, Chuck. We refer to it in philosophy as the problem of divine hiddenness. And that is to say, God seems, and that's a key word right there, I would think, seems to be silent. First of all, Chuck, I think one way we can respond to this and provide an answer is that it automatically assumes that God doesn't have good reasons to sort of hold back his extraordinary manifestation of himself that would automatically convert everybody to acknowledge his existence, okay? And we just fundamentally can't possibly know that God doesn't have good reasons. So let's say God is silent, and we grant that God is hidden in various ways. That shouldn't lead one to deny God's existence, because if I make that conclusion, I'm automatically assuming, well, God doesn't have any good reasons for that hiddenness, so he probably doesn't exist. But we can't possibly know if he doesn't have good reasons. He may have good reasons to hold back, so to speak, the manifestation of himself to convert us all to himself. But so the next question is, okay, well, what might be some of those good reasons? Well, one possible reason is that if God would manifest himself, Chuck, in such a way that it was totally obvious that he existed, we may obey out of fear instead of out of love. That's one possible reason of why he might remain silent or hidden. Another thought that comes to mind is that, Patrick, from great philosopher Norris Clark.
The Jesuit from Fordham.
That's right. He once put forth the argument that God's obscure presence to us is sort of a way by which he eliminates his enemies, right? So we have all of these finite things that constantly leave us empty, that constantly fail to ultimately satisfy us, which does what? It keeps us looking and moving forward for that infinite satisfaction, namely God. So God possibly might hold himself back a little bit, Chuck, in order to woo us and draw us to himself. Another thought that comes to mind is that let's say hypothetically God would manifest himself in some extraordinary fashion where all would know that he exists. It doesn't necessarily mean everybody's going to obey him. Because the demons know that God exists.
They're perfectly orthodox.
That's
they
right.
believe but tremble.
Amen. James 2:21. The demons know that God exists, but they do not obey him. So just because God would manifest himself doesn't necessarily mean we would automatically obey him. And then finally, Chuck, the last thought that comes to mind by way of response is that let's say, hypothetically, God would put some words in the sky for all to see, I exist. Fundamentally, that doesn't necessarily mean God exists. Why? Because somebody could posit, well, it might be some alien manipulating our visible senses.
A friend of mine flies F-18s. He could do that.
That's right. That's right. So I think fundamentally it's, the divine hiddenness is not necessarily a problem for God's existence and for us as theists, because we can propose certain possible reasons of why God may very well not manifest himself in such an extraordinary way that would sort of overpower our wills, or even if not overpower our wills, not manifest himself in an extraordinary way, and that still be consistent with his divine goodness. Does that make sense, Chuck?
That does. That's awesome.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling, Chuck. God bless you.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Chuck.